Howdy guys, and welcome to night 61 of Big Brother Season 23's Overnight Feed Recaps, and welcome to Cliff Notes from outside the Big Brother house. A good Labor Day to all of y'all. Hope y'all are enjoying this Monday. I sure am. But just because we're out and about and enjoying the holiday doesn't mean there's a holiday inside the Big Brother house. Although they probably will get some kind of cookout and everything later today. We did during my season. I think they did during 22. So I expect a little Labor Day celebration later today. But before that, we had the conversation yesterday that we were all waiting for between Tiffany and Claire. Just as a recap, Tiffany won HOH. She puts up Alyssa and Xavier. It seems so easy, right? Send Alyssa out the door until Alyssa wins veto, which now puts Tiffany in the position of Alyssa's going to pull herself off the block, right? Surely so. Which puts Tiffany in the position of either then putting up her tightest ally, Claire, on the block and sending her home, or betraying the Cookout Alliance and sending someone from the Cookout Alliance home instead. Well, the decision has been made. Tiffany has talked to the camera. She's talked to everyone else in the Alliance. She is going to put Claire up on the block, send her home. The big thing was just what was she going to say to Claire? How was she going to phrase it? When she was going to have the conversation? Well, that has taken place, so we're going to talk about that. Normally, I talk about live feeds that take place, say, after last night's episode onwards, but there was so much taking place yesterday afternoon, I really need to talk on that as well, so that's what we're going to do. So, again, she has decided that she's going to tell Claire, but she wanted to tell Claire without going into a whole lot of details about the Cookout Alliance and really kind of keep it quiet. That created a little bit of an issue between her and Xavier. Xavier doesn't want anything told to Claire until she gets in the jury. And his fear is that if Claire finds out about the Cookout Alliance, that Claire will then let Alyssa know. Alyssa will be upset. Xavier is worried that if Alyssa's upset, potentially she could then turn on Xavier if she won HOH. Xavier wants to keep it all quiet. Well, Tiffany said, nah, I can't do that. I've got to say something to Claire about why I'm putting her up. So that created a little bit of controversy yesterday about how and if Tiffany was even going to have that conversation. There was also a lot of infighting amongst the Cookout members, and it mostly involved jury management, whether or not to tell Claire what's going on, but also about the votes. Hannah wanted a 3-2 vote against Claire, with the idea being if there's 2 votes voting to save Claire, then Hannah can portray that as it's her and Azza who are trying to protect her. She preserves a relationship with Claire. Again, it's all about jury votes, right? Well, Xavier and Tiffany are both saying, yeah, I'm not sure that we want, you're just doing that to help with jury votes. And Hannah's like, yeah, they don't want that. They want it 4-1. They want Claire. They want Alyssa as well. They want everyone to accuse all the Cookout Alliance equally. So they're not wanting this 3-2 vote. But that's some of the argument that was taking place yesterday before the conversation. Another little bit of conversation. I just, not a lot of strategic info here, but thought it was interesting to point out. Azza reported that Big D told her that Big D just doesn't feel like Azza's been pulling her weight in the Cookout Alliance. I don't know. What do you say? It makes me think pot, kettle. Some kind of saying about that. But yeah, Big D doesn't feel like Azza's pulling her weight. Big D maybe needs to win a competition here or there as well. We'll just leave it at that. But there was a lot of infighting going on amongst the Cookout Alliance, which is to be expected when they represent 8, soon to be 6 or 7 of the people left in the house. We're seeing the wedges, the divisions form right now as everyone's fighting for their position in the game. I hope y'all can still hear me, but I talk loud enough. I think you probably can. All right, so as I've been alluding to, we did have the conversation between Tiffany and Claire, and given the difficult circumstances, I think for the most part, Tiffany handled it well. Tiffany basically brought Claire in and said, look, I want to be honest with you. Here's the deal. Alyssa was my target. You know Alyssa was my target, Claire. I wanted to send her home, but now she's going to pull herself off the block, and I'm faced with a difficult decision. And she says, Claire, I can't put up Azza or Hannah or Big D or Kylan against Xavier and end up being responsible for sending one of them home. Now, she never told Claire specifically why she couldn't put one of them up against Xavier. But I think Claire fully understands that it's because they are black people of color and Claire is not. And so even though that wording, even though the mission wasn't specifically called out by Tiffany, Claire understands. Claire picked up on the undertones of why Tiffany doesn't want to put any of them up. And so Claire at that point says, well, if you don't put one of them up, if you put me up, I'm going home. I know I'm going home. And Tiffany kind of says, I don't want to send you home, but I have to. I have to put you up, even if that's what happens. And it's difficult. But here's the thing. Tiffany portrays this as a personal decision, a personal, emotional decision that she is making, as opposed to saying this is an alliance that we've all had going on, and I'm just playing my role in the alliance. Now, she doesn't say any of that. She very much makes it sound like she just, on a personal level, can't send one of those persons home. And at one point, Claire says, are you in an alliance with them? And Tiffany says, no, I'm not in an alliance. That, as much as I think Tiffany handled this okay, I think that was a mistake on Tiffany's part. Claire's going to find out. Someone in the Cookout Alliance is going to spill the beans as part of a goodbye message, or once they get into the jury house, they're going to mention the Cookout Alliance. And when that happens, Claire's going to now understand that Tiffany lied to her about the alliance when she didn't need to. So I think that was a mistake on Tiffany's part, not just go ahead and come clean, but she didn't come clean. She said, I'm not part of an alliance. This is all a personal decision. Lots of tears going on. Tiffany trying to tell Claire, say, look, you still have a chance. Talk to Ozza and Hannah and Big D, and you only need 3 votes. And Claire saying, nah, I'm not going to get the votes. You know it. I know it. I'm not getting the votes. And she's not going to get the votes. She knows it's game over. Claire is saying next that she's saying, look, if I go, Tiffany, you're next. You will be right behind me going out the door. And Tiffany's saying, I know it. I think you're probably right, but I can live with that. I have to live with that. Well, no, she can't live with that. She doesn't want that. She doesn't expect that to happen. She expects Claire to be out the door, Alyssa to be out the door right behind her. Now, if Alyssa wins HOH or veto, then things could change a little bit. And could Tiffany then be out the door if that's the case? Well, yeah, I think Alyssa very well could target Tiffany if she was to win HOH next week. And next week it's going to be a double. So right after Claire gets booted, Alyssa very well could turn around and potentially send Tiffany out the door behind her. So that's a possibility, but I know Tiffany's not counting on that, and she sure isn't okay with that. But she's making the best of a difficult situation. But they have that. Claire is saying she won't hold it against her, and I think she's probably right. I think Claire, of as many people in this game, I think Claire is a fairly strategic, logical person. I think that's why she and Tiffany have somewhat worked well together so far. But I don't think she'll necessarily hold it against her. Now, when she finds out that there really was an alliance and Tiffany was still lying to her even at this point, well, we'll see. That may temper her a little bit. But I think Claire is going to want a woman to win Big Brother this season. If it's Tiffany on the block versus Xavier, for example, or any of the guys, I think Tiffany still has Claire's votes. But we got a few more weeks before that happens, right? So we'll see. All right. Lots of talk after that, and they hug, and I think Claire got called away to the DR, which I thought was interesting, that Big Brother didn't let them talk for as long as they want and everything else. But Claire gets called to the DR, so that conversation kind of ends. So Tiffany's feeling better. In fact, Tiffany later says that she really dreaded this whole thing, but now that it's been forced to happen, she actually feels better. She thinks this is a blessing in disguise, that she had to go ahead and come clean with Claire, that her conscience is clean and all of that. So she's feeling like actually it may have been for the better the way things happened this week. We'll find out. We'll see if it was for the better or not. All right, lots of conversation the rest of the evening. Not as much strategic for a while, but we had a lot of the house guests talking about who they follow, who they don't follow from past seasons. They eventually start, which reminds me, I need to go and see who follows me. But after that, they started playing a game of Mafia. I think it was a Harry Potter themed Mafia, doing some things like that. Just getting away from the game for just a little bit. Very stressful day yesterday. Getting away from the game, playing Mafia and such for a little bit. Eventually, we've got Alyssa talking to Derek. She is saying, oh, poor Alyssa. She's saying, look, if we can get Tiffany to nominate Claire, it is going to be the biggest move of the season. Now, remember yesterday, Hannah had talked to, I think it's Tiffany, saying, I'm going to talk to Alyssa. I'm going to try to convince Alyssa that it should be her idea, it's her idea to put Claire on the block and let her take some ownership. Well, apparently Hannah's conversation worked, because now Alyssa is all on board with Claire getting put up. She thinks that it's a bunch of deception and stuff, that they're convincing Alyssa or Tiffany to put Claire on the block. All she can see is that they're going to convince Tiffany to put up her closest ally of Claire on the block, that Alyssa is going to see the opportunity for Xavier to be saved, and they are going to pull the fast one over on Tiffany, and Alyssa can't wait to see it. She thinks it'll be the biggest move of the entire season. Well, Alyssa obviously is still oblivious to the whole Cookout Alliance and doesn't understand that, yes, that's what everyone in the Cookout Alliance wants. No, it's not going to be the biggest move of the season at all. Alyssa is going to be so excited when she sees Claire walk out the door and and Xavier still in the house. She's going to think that everything is going exactly the way she wants, that she's in a great position, and she is going to be in for a considerable shock just, an hour or so later as part of the double eviction. It's going to be a tough night for Alyssa. Claire, I think, Claire said she may be okay with Tiffany and the way things have gone. I'm not sure Alyssa will be. I think Alyssa's going to be a little bit more bitter when she finds out just how she got played in this game. All right, we've got Kylan and Xavier complaining about Tiffany. They're still complaining about the fact that she hung up on that rope on the HOH and didn't throw it to Azza, that she hung up there and obviously didn't want Kylan to win, that Tiffany won the whole thing. They are upset about that. Kylan and Xavier are both talking about going to Final 3 together and saying, would we be able to help each other out all the way up to Final 3 and all that. So they very much are in a Final 3 position and really thinking that they should be a Final 2 together, I think, as well. But meanwhile, Tiffany and Hannah are upstairs and they're complaining about Xavier. They're saying that Xavier is trying to control everything. He was upset about them telling Claire. He's upset that the vote might be 3-2 to send Claire out instead of 4-1. They're saying Xavier wants everything run through him for approval before anything is done. Tiffany is saying, Hannah, you don't have to ask him about your vote. You don't owe him anything. You don't owe him conversations, anything at all. But they're very much still griping about Xavier quite a bit. And Hannah's saying that Xavier is worried that if Alyssa finds out about the Cookout Alliance, she's going to feel so betrayed that if she wins HOH, she is then going to put Xavier on the block. I don't think so. I think as upset as she is, I think she'll hold it against Tiffany more than anything and still try to send Tiffany home. I think Xavier could do enough talking to convince her that he's part of this alliance, but he's also part of hers. I don't think it's as grim as Xavier maybe is making it out to be, but Hannah's saying he's worried about that. All right, so we've got that. Now, Hannah is saying that no one can beat Xavier. If it comes down, if he's there at the Final 4, Final 3, no one is going to beat him in the competitions. No one is going to beat him at jury votes. She said, Tiffany, you've got the best chance, but I'm not sure that even you can beat Xavier when it comes to the votes themselves. And so Hannah's saying, we need to get him gone. We need a Final 3 of Tiffany, Hannah, you and me, and Kylan. And she said, I'd rather have Azza, but I just don't think Azza's strong enough that she can carry her weight. Lots of people not thinking Azza is really that strong this season. She's saying, I don't think Azza can do enough to help us going forward. So instead, we need to bring in Kylan. You and me and Kylan, we've got to be the Final 3. We cannot let it be Xavier up on the block. And in fact, conversation, I think she mentions it a little bit later. She says, also, Big D and Azza, we can't let them get towards the end because anyone is going to want to take them to the final end because they know they can win a Final 2 against either of those two players. Yeah, Azza and Big D definitely the Victoria of this season. And I feel sorry for Victoria back in season 16. She is now the label for anyone who just floats to the very end and has zero chance of winning. But they're thinking that they can't let them get to the end because then everyone will, Kylan, Xavier, anyone will send home Hannah or Tiffany over Big D or Azza in order to sit on Final 2 chairs with them. Tiffany is worried. She doesn't think that Xavier is going to take out Alyssa if he gets the opportunity. If he wins HOH, she doesn't think he'll actually go through and send Alyssa home. And she's saying he may even take Alyssa to Final 2 if he has the opportunity. We cannot let that happen. She's also thinking that none of the men want to win this next HOH and be forced to put Alyssa on the block or betray the Cookout Alliance. She's probably right. There's a lot of people that I do not think want to win this next HOH. I think everyone wants to hold off winning it Final 7 HOH so that they can turn around and compete for the final 6 HOH, because that's where it's really all going to hit the fan. We're going to see a whole lot of infighting once you have only the Cookout Alliance left. So I think Tiffany's right. No one wants to win except for Alyssa. If a whole lot of people are throwing this final 7 HOH, does that increase Alyssa's chances of maybe winning this thing, forcing herself into final 6? I don't know. It may be an interesting Thursday next week. I'm excited for it. All right, finally, we've got Kylan then goes upstairs. He's visiting with Hannah and Tiffany, and they're telling him kind of what they said before. They're saying, look, Kylan, you can't win final 7 because we need you to represent and help us out in the final 6 competition. And he's saying, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and once we get to final 6, if I win that HOH, y'all are good. I'm putting up Ozza. That's who I want to send home. And at that point, there's lots of talk about who may be targeting who once they get to final 6. I won't go through all of it because just a whole bunch of scenarios, a bunch of people throwing out different ideas. But Tiffany at one point says, Kylan, Xavier, if he gets a chance, he's going after you, Kylan. I've heard that said. And Kylan says, who'd you hear that from? It's not really information unless you tell me who the source is. And she says, well, I'm not going to give you the source. You've never asked for the source in the past. But she's trying. She knows that Kylan and Xavier are tight with each other. And so she's trying to plant the seeds, just like we've seen throughout the season. She's trying to plant the seeds to create a little bit of division between Kylan and Xavier by saying, he's going after you. You better be careful. Well, maybe not. Again, I don't think Kylan's necessarily buying it if she won't actually throw out names. We've also got, all right, here's what I mentioned before. Hannah's afraid that anyone's going to take Ozza or Big D to the final because they're easy to beat, and I understand that thinking. But they're also talking about what could happen if Alyssa uses the veto on Xavier this week. And we're not talking about the second half of the double eviction. They're still talking about the idea of trying to talk Alyssa into not using the veto on herself, but instead using it on Xavier to try to portray him as a bigger target. And then they turn around and they send Alyssa home after all, and Claire say, it's not going to happen. As I said yesterday, if Alyssa doesn't use a veto on herself today, veto ceremony today, if she doesn't use it on herself, she doesn't have any business being in this game anyway. She won't do it. She's going to use a veto on herself. But they're still dreaming about something like that potentially happen. And then finally, just to finish this whole thing out, after Kylan leaves, we've got Tiffany and Hannah once again talking to each other, and they're both saying, look, Kylan has spent all night going to talk to everyone, and that really makes us, they both are thinking that Kylan may be promising all kinds of stuff to them, but he may really still be aligned with the guys, and the guys may be his top alliance right now within the Cookout Alliance, no matter what he's saying to Tiffany and Hannah. And they could be right on that, but I think it's Tiffany who points out, says, well, even if that's the case, at least by us pointing out to Kylan how much we need him, how much we want him, Kylan may feel like he can have us over here and them over there, and hopefully that means he still doesn't target us right off the bat. So even if he's still with the guys, it still helps if he knows that we're so dependent on him, so wanting him on our side. And I'm telling you, Tiffany, a few missteps here and there throughout the season, but Tiffany has played a great game so far. This has been a tough week. She had the conversation with Claire, got that taken care of. I still think Tiffany's playing a pretty good game. Now, she's got a target on her back. Certainly, depending on who wins this final 6 HOH, who wins this final, maybe even final 7 HOH. Tiffany's not free and clear to the end. She's got a lot of potential roadblocks and hazards, and she could find herself going home right behind Claire. But I guess I really have admired Tiffany's game so far. So she made it through this week so far. We'll have the nomination ceremony today. Claire's going to go on the block. Everyone will respect Tiffany that she's stayed loyal to the Cookout Alliance. Doesn't mean they still won't send her home soon, but she's made it through this bit. We'll see what happens after the veto ceremony. I'll be back tomorrow, give you a little bit more updates about what's going on. Until then, guys, enjoy your Labor Day. Enjoy every bit of it. Celebrate. Be grateful for everything we've got. Y'all have a great one. I will talk to y'all tomorrow. Cheers, my friends. SKD 143. Bye.